That's interesting. What do you think? What is the reason for you being so for being so easy for you, the tasting exam? Your system, or do you feel like you have a special talent in differentiating any aromas?
I don't think I necessarily have a particular tasting talent. I'm not a big believer that there are incredibly gifted tasters. I think there are people who work very hard at how they do their tasting. You know, and how much tasting have you done? How widely have you travelled? I mean, I think to study for the WSET, to study for the MW, it's a huge advantage to live in London, as I did at the time, because the entire world's wine trade is there to taste. It's a hugely privileged position to be in. I mean, now that I live in New Zealand, quite often if I'm setting up a tasting, I'll think, yes, I want to try that. And that's a classic example of that from this country, and it's not available in the market. You know, you have to compromise. You have to find another wine that does the same sort of thing. So, yes, I mean, I've been fortunate to travel, but then I was also fortunate in where I was based in terms of that study. And the other thing about London is there's a wonderful availability of tastings to go to. The trade is very well provided with opportunities to be shown wines by importers and distributors there.
Yeah, that definitely is very helpful to have this environment that provides for learning. Do you have like a special strategy or way of tasting, like steps to try to identify the wine?
So, I mean, like I say, I think it's a question of being systematic, and if you're doing that, you're consistently looking at alcohol, acidity, fruit profile, winemaking steps, that sort of thing. And as you do that, you have to be very disciplined with your timing as well. I mean, you know, they now allow 2 hours, 15 minutes to taste 12 wines in the exam. So that's a very tight amount of time. We used to have to do it in 2 hours. And I mean, it still amazes me that I did it once, but just from the point of view of my exam technique, I had a wine that I was tasting, I was nosing it, and I couldn't work out what the heck it was. It was a full-bodied white wine, and I just thought, I don't have time to sit here and work out what this is. If I do that, I won't finish the paper. And so I thought, well, what could it be? Okay, let's say it's a Semillon. So I wrote up a note for a Semillon. Because I got my timing right, I had 5 minutes at the end to go back and nose all the wines. Suddenly this wine had opened up and it was giving off aromas of apricots. And you think, you know, this is quite clearly Viognier. How could I have missed that? How could I possibly have missed that? And I wouldn't have had time to have written a note for Viognier at that stage. But I did have time to go through and cross out Semillon and write Viognier. And so that's not necessarily a tasting skill. That was exam skill, I think. And being quite cool in the situation and assessing that. So it's always good to sort of stand back and be measured in the way that you look at these things. Okay.
That's interesting. So you would say that mostly the thinking should be excluding things, what can it not be, and maybe narrowing it down to, because obviously some wine styles can be similar, the descriptors can be similar.
I mean, very, very, very often the questions are designed to help you do that narrowing down. Obviously, there's a degree of that. And yes, what are you seeing there? When I was talking about being systematic, I mean, for instance, if you're talking about a wine, the climate for a wine, are you talking about its acidity, its ripeness, the flavor development, those things that will mark it out? And often, if you're writing a paper like that and you're under a lot of time pressure, you end up wanting to write more. Whereas actually what you need to concentrate on are the basics, that structure, the acidity, the alcohol, the acid, and the fruit, and how they combine to put together the wine. So, you know, being systematic like that and ensuring that you've picked off all the things that you feel it's necessary to talk about, to write about climate, for instance, stops you from writing those extra 2 lines that wouldn't have gained you anything, because you're looking at the salient facts, the most important things there. So it's picking out the most important facts. And once you've got that, yes, you can exclude an awful lot.
Of course. Well, that makes sense. And for the preparation for the tasting exam, what was your strategy? Was it more blind tasting and trying to exercise these descriptions, or mostly tasting wines that you knew what they are and trying to understand and memorize their style?
I think it's more the first.
Okay.
I think as much as anything, it's a question of doing that practice to time and getting your answers down so that you're writing your answers quite automatically. And yes, it's as important to be going over those wines you think you know as it is to be going over the wines. There's no point in going out the night before and thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, what are the grape varieties in Sardinia? What if they come up? You're much better off to be sure that you know what Grenache, Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Carignan, but mainline grape varieties taste like. And you're probably not going to lose a lot of marks for not identifying Mencia, for instance.
Okay.
But if you're tasting 4 Spanish wines, and one of them's clearly Rioja and the other one might be a Ribera del Duero, well, then the Mencia is probably something you should think about for one of the others.
Okay.
And and if you describe it as Mencia, you should be able to say what you think about the sort of the structure of the tannins and the acidity and things like that. So that even if you're wrong, what you're saying is consistent with the grape variety and what you're tasting in the glass.
Okay, so you also get points for even if the exact name is not right. I see. Thanks for watching this video. You can watch the full podcast episode by clicking here, or watch another interesting video by clicking here. Let's continue the discussion in the comment section and see you in the next one.